Hey guys, so this is going to be a quick tutorial showing you a new little effect that I found while playing with the directional blur. So let's jump on into it. Alright, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that little edit. The basics of this effect is simple. It's just using a directional blur in a non-intrusive way. That is, using it very subtly. So as you can see with this little video right here, if I scroll through, the directional blur comes in, and as it's coming in, it's rotating as well, and then going back out in the opposite direction. And then the next one is just a diagonal 45-degree blur that goes in and out nice and quick. And when played back, it's actually pretty effective when you have audio accompanying it. These are the two clips that we're going to be working with. I'm also going to be showing you how to directional blur just one part of the video as well, like you can see right here. So let's jump on into it. On the first clip, we're going to simply go to the effects tab, type in directional blur, and simply drag that directional blur effect onto your video clip. Click on your video clip, go to the effects controls tab, and scrub to a part in your timeline where you want the directional blur to happen. Right here looks good for me. So you'll notice that the directional blur has a direction and a blur length. If you increase the blur length, your image will become more blurry. I've found that anywhere from 20 to 40 works best, and sometimes lower. So for this first one, I'm going to do 15 and then change the direction around. You can get very complex blurs on your own, but for this example, I'm just going to set the blur length to 15, keyframe it, and the direction I'm going to be putting at 77. And I'm also going to keyframe that by clicking the stopwatch to the left. I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard and hit the left arrow key once. That'll jump me 5 frames in that direction. And then I'm going to click the reset parameter button on both the direction and the blur length. I'm going to hit the shift on my keyboard and hit the right arrow key twice. That'll jump me 5 frames in the other direction of our center keyframe, and hit the reset parameter button again on both of those keyframes. So if we play back through this, you can see that the little blur effect created a little stutter in our clip. The fun thing about this effect is that you can zoom in and drag these effects to make them shorter or longer to your own desire and preference. So as you can see, that's a nice little effect that I have going on right here. So the other little effect that you can do is blur out certain scenes of an area. So if you go to the effects tab, drag that directional blur onto your clip, and then make the blur length a little long. We're going to simply keyframe that blur length, go to the beginning, and reset the parameter so that our blur happens slowly. And then all of a sudden, once it reaches the max capacity, we're going to reset that parameter down really fast. I highly recommend setting a Bezier onto the middle and an ease in on the ending, as well as an ease out on the beginning, so that it'll look like this. Boom. So what we're going to do now is simply click on the opacity and click on either the ellipse mask or the create 4 polygon mask, or make our own free draw Bezier mask. I'm just going to use the polygon mask and drag this mask over towards where I want to have the image be blurred. You notice that everywhere else is not going to be able to be seen. So we're going to create the mask feather around 500. And then I'm going to simply duplicate this layer and click on the underlying layer and simply delete the mask and delete the directional blur. Clicking back on the top layer, I'm going to scrub to where the directional blur is most prominent and adjust my mask accordingly. So you can simply click in here and add your own little control points to control your blur to your own specific preference. But as you can see from that example, we have the left side of our screen getting blurred and the rest of it is not getting blurred. So one thing I should mention is that whenever you guys use a directional blur, it will actually pull in from the edges if you increase your blur length. As you can see, I'm starting to get a little bit of a black border coming around my image. And the only way to get rid of that black border is, once you are happy with your directional blur, just simply right click on it, click on nest, and then you're going to have to zoom in a tiny bit. So as you can see, since we zoomed in, our blur does not have that black border anymore. You can use these effects in transition with a lot of different things to create your own custom little blurs. As you can see right here, I made a circular blur, as in whenever the blur happened, it started to rotate the entire blur so that you can get some interesting effects. So that's all for now. Hopefully you guys liked that tutorial. And if you did, click that thumbs up and subscribe because I'm going to be making some more stuff in the future. I'll see you next time.